This is Kibbutz Zikim, and that is the border. Those houses over there are already Gaza.
Right here, along the southernmost Israeli shoreline, Zikim Beach, is where 28-year-old Avira Mengistu came on September 7th, 2014. But Avira, a mentally disturbed young man, did not come here for a swim in the sea. He continued walking south, in the sand, until he reached the border fence. There, he jumped over the fence and in a flash was on the other side, in the Gaza Strip.
My brother is 1.5 kilometers from here, right near us, and we don't know what's happening with him. My brother came from the direction of Ashkelon, a real hike. He walked up to the fence and just went on walking into Gaza.
He has been there ever since. Why did he cross the border? Is he dead or alive? Is he held captive by Hamas? What is being done to secure his return? These questions and more are being asked by the Mengistu family for over 1,000 days. This is the house in Ashkelon from where Avera departed with a small knapsack, a towel, and sandals. And in the house, Avera's mother remembers the last time she saw her son.
I
remember I came home around noon and he asked me for some money. I told him I didn't have any, but will try to get some. I may be able to borrow from someone. I asked if he wanted to buy anything at the local store. Tell me, I said, and I will buy on credit. Avera did not reply and stormed out of the house.
The Mengistu family emigrated from Ethiopia to Israel during Operation Solomon in 1991. His father, Aileen, and mother, Agranash, and their 7 children settled in Ashkelon. Avira was 5 years old. Like many Ethiopian immigrants, the family experienced a culture shock upon arrival. The move from rural Ethiopia to westernized Israel was traumatic. The patriarchal family structure collapsed, and the parents struggled with the language as well as with financial hardships. Ethiopian immigrant families congregated on the outskirts of small towns and ghetto-like communities, remaining on the sidelines of Israeli society. But 6 years later, when his beloved brother Michael died after serious illness, Avira began to change.
After my brother Michael, God rest his soul, passed away, we saw something was happening to Avera already during the Shiva. He would say, "I lost a brother. I have nothing to live for." He was in constant mourning. He became increasingly disconnected, stopped talking with his brothers, with the family. We saw he was getting worse. He agreed to be hospitalized and was released after a couple of weeks, but unfortunately, the treatment did not help, and we had to unfortunately commit him again. He was then treated with medications. It wasn't easy dealing with him. He had fits of rage. Especially Mom had a hard time.
Avira lived then with his parents, kept changing odd jobs until that day in September of 2014, when he walked down the beach and never returned.
The next day, I received a call from the security services saying there has been a security incident and they want to talk to me about it. They said they didn't know how to tell me, but my brother crossed the border into Gaza. That was devastating news for me. I almost fainted.
2 weeks after Avira crossed into Gaza, the government representatives met the family and showed them footage recorded by lookouts of Avira crossing the border. The Mengistu family refuses to release the clip to the media.
You see him walking toward the fence along the shore. You see him walking over to a group of fishermen on the beach. And that's the last information about him.
When I see him walking towards the border, I just cry. The tears just keep coming, and I ask myself, where were the guards that just let my son cross the fence so easily? It makes me mad. It hurts me. I still cannot believe this happened.
We feel the soldiers could have prevented this. The lookouts record everything, but you don't see IDF forces coming to stop him, especially there, which is a military area. We have no doubt there was some failure to act.
But beyond the family's claim that the soldiers could have stopped Avera, their anger is also directed towards themselves for agreeing to keep silent and not to go public for 10 months.
There's no doubt that if we had made some noise and the government would have raised this early on, we would have had more information sooner, and the discussion today would be entirely different. This is a humanitarian case of this guy who was not armed and had no intention of hurting anyone. Unfortunately, our biggest mistake was keeping quiet and believing them that would serve the purpose.
Only 10 months after Avira crossed the border did the family decide to approach the media and tell the story.
On behalf of myself and my family, I ask the Israeli government to do everything they can to bring my brother home safely.
In the same period, several younger members of the Ethiopian community decided to set up an improvised headquarters to publicize Avira's plight and that of his family.
You can hardly call us an organized headquarters because we have no public figures or some PR firm pushing our story out there. We're just a group of concerned citizens working with the family trying to create public awareness in Israeli society. First of all, they must know who Avera Mengistu is.
It's 5 p.m. at the city square of Lod. According to calls online, a demonstration with youth movement's kids is due to start, calling for the release of Avira. But only 20 people or so show up and try to shake the quiet square into action.
Have you heard of Avera Mengistu? So he's an Ethiopian boy who's mentally ill. He crossed the border into Gaza and is held hostage there, and we're trying to get him back.
So, we want to show his family we care, and the youths care, and so do the people of Israel.
So now there's a march in 10 minutes from here to the youth building where we'll create a huge graffiti wall. There's now a march all over the city to raise awareness.
Come, it's important.
What we'll do now is there's a march all over the city in 5 minutes.
No,
Why?
I can't.
My mom is a social activist. Around Passover, she told me there was a march for Avera Mengistu. I knew only a bit about him, like many people, but I said I will go and see what's going on. I went there, and when I saw his mother, the pain in her eyes, you have to do something. So with a lot of people, it kind of goes away, but I told my friends about it, and it did not go away, so we decided we had to do something.
I came to stand with these young people. 15, 16-year-olds were doing this thing. I don't see leaders. I don't see any of the leaders coming out here to speak and hurt and show they hurt. How do I explain this? No, I won't say it. I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it's racism. I don't want to say it. I don't want to be trapped in this ugly discussion. I don't feel like it. Maybe it is his background, and that's too bad. People of Israel have returned home in beautiful colors. We're Jews, I remind you, citizens that give everything, no less than anyone else, and in some cases even more.
In late April 2015, a wave of demonstrations by members of the Ethiopian community begins. The trigger is a clip circulated in the media showing police brutally hitting Damas Pikada, a soldier from Ethiopian origin. This clip brought tens of thousands out to the streets protesting what they call the government's racism targeted toward them. Some demonstrators wear T-shirts which call to free Avira Mengistu, alluding to his case as proof of racism.
Avira Mengistu, for those who don't know, is being held by Hamas for 11 months while the Democratic State of Israel tries to keep it quiet.
But whether or not Avira's situation is due to institutional racism, it is hard not to compare it to the case of Gilad Shalit.
אני החייל גלעד בן נועם שליט, הכלוא אצל כתב אל שהיד עז א-דין אל-קסאם.
Shalit was abducted by Hamas on June 25, 2006, while on active duty on the Gaza border. Immediately after his abduction, a huge public campaign was launched calling for his release. Eventually, after 5 years and 4 months in captivity, Shalit is released in a prisoner swap in exchange for 1,027 Hamas prisoners, including hundreds of convicted killers, with blood on their hands.
This gang released in the Gilad Shalit swap is today running terror activity in the West Bank. But you have to understand the difference. Gilad Shalit was a soldier on active duty who was abducted in the course of battle. Mengistu was not. He went there on his own volition. No one abducted him. He walked there.
On his own volition? He is like someone with Alzheimer's getting lost, like a 4-year-old. How can you blame a 4-year-old for something he doesn't know he's done? You cannot judge someone like that.
The campaigner's T-shirt reads, "Avera is alive, but is he?"
A year and a half in, we heard from unofficial channels that he was alive. Really credible people, some of whom travel into the Gaza Strip, that received a message from Hamas that he is alive and well.
The person who relayed this optimistic information is Gershon Baskin. Baskin, a peace activist, mediated between the Israeli government and Hamas during the efforts to release Gilad Shalit.
About a year ago, I went to meet the family in Ashkelon, and I pleaded with someone in Hamas to allow me to have some information to relate to his mother that he was alive, something official. About an hour before I met them, I got a phone call, and I was told unofficially, off the record, you can tell the mother that he is alive and he is in Gaza.
Hamas is now waiting for an Israeli proposal. Various mediators are talking to them. They're expecting around 1,000 to 1,200 prisoners and are encountering a totally different Israeli position that is talking about single digits, really low numbers. So that's why it's stuck and he's over there.
Since the August 2014 Protective Edge conflict with Gaza, Hamas has been claiming to have the remains of 2 IDF soldiers, Hadar Golden and Oron Shaul, both killed in fighting in the Gaza Strip. Avira's chances of release at the moment according to the people involved, are only in conjunction with a deal for the return to Israel of the remains of 2 IDF soldiers held by Hamas. The Israeli public will more easily accept the release of terrorists in exchange for the bodies of soldiers, and not for a mentally disturbed civilian of Ethiopian origin.
For me, he's an Israeli citizen, and I think that the government of Israel has a responsibility to do everything possible to bring him home. I believe that a deal will be made. I don't know when. It may take more time until there's readiness. It might be the result of, God forbid, another war with Gaza. That in the end, we will negotiate through the Egyptians or through someone else another ceasefire agreement, and it may involve at that time an exchange of prisoners. And we don't know what's going to happen. But it's not realistic to believe that if he is alive, and I believe that he is, that he will spend the rest of his life in captivity in Gaza. That's not reasonable to believe. He will come home.
Meanwhile, at home in Ashkelon, the family continues to search for answers while counting the days Avira is missing.
I want to appeal to Hamas and ask them to return my son to me. He did not go to fight you. He was unarmed. He came with empty hands and ill. How could you hold a sick man for 3 years? Why? Not knowing is killing me. Please tell me what's happening with him. Is he dead or alive? Talk to us. This is all I'm asking.
ከሌለ ደግሞ የለም ይበሉ የሬሳውን ይስጡኝ። ይሄ ነው።